Hello. Mic check. Good.
Wherever you want. Thank you.
Good. We all good? Hear this? Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so the Practitioner's Guide to the AI Galaxy. Who here is sick of hearing this? Let's hope my clicker works. They're definitely sick of hearing that. So, fear of AI taking over. Who of us is going to be made redundant first? This one the worst, these guys on YouTube, like passive income through ChatGPT with dropshipping, like it's just a really annoying environment. So, with that in mind, what do we want to do? Why are we here? So, we want to cut through the insane AI noise. Just click the next one. Yes, thanks.
Which one am I doing? Click this one. Which click are we doing?
Right. Okay, so we're not here to talk about politics, ethics, or sentience, because we've all heard about it. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of this, so just give it yeah, we're not here to talk about backpropagation, LLMs, or tokens. And we're definitely not here to talk about or showcase some press demo somewhere in America to get some clickbait, to get some likes. So, with that in mind,
So, okay, hi everyone. Yeah, and so when we talk about AI, now us two here are not experts in machine learning or like some of that intense, deep, really cool and really interesting kind of data scientist bit. The bit we want to talk about today is what's called generative AI. Now, this has become pretty kind of popular recently because like ChatGPT's come out, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, and all this like mid-journey. Now, hands up, who's played with ChatGPT? Like, that's probably 95% of everyone. Perfect. This is the talk for everyone here. Good. So, like, and also, we're not experts in this, and I'm going to give you a license now. If anyone comes up to you and goes, I'm an expert in generative AI, just turn around and walk away, because it is too early. And it was like great hearing Matt's talk just now. Like, I think VR is at a place kind of like in about like 5 years, AI may be there to kind of get some kind of patterns, but it's far, far too early. There are no experts in it, apart from the people who created it. Now, they're fine. So yeah, so definitely not us.
oh yeah. Talking about us, I thought we'd do a little bit of an introduction. So I'm Chris, it's Gareth. We've kind of been collabing off and on for about 7 years, in and out of work. Yeah, that's me in there. It kind of sums up our relationship. And we are into try to break that into that innovation space. Like, digital is a wave that keeps progressing, and we're very keen to always be a part of that, as exhausting as it is. But I think the easiest way to sum up our relationship, our work, is to give you a very intense showreel. Hopefully this is going to be very loud. You might have to press it one more time. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what we're about. So kind of crazy stuff. There's a mix of everything in there. None of it was actually AI driven at that point. So we decided to get together. We thought, I've got Collaborate coming up. Like, what can we do? Like, can we challenge ourselves to rapidly collaborate with AI to create an AI product and concept and brand in time for this talk, which was around just under 2 weeks. So it's ourselves, Gareth, obviously, and AI, which we refer to as Gus. So the plan was, to understand that sweet spot between 0 to 100%. So 100% is mental, that's not going to happen, but at 0% it's obviously pointless. So we were trying to figure out, in a commercial context, in a practical context, how much AI should we and could we use, and what's the best ways of using it. So with that in mind, the plan was to make a fake product with AI and introduce it. And just to kind of caveat on this product that we're going to talk to, we might end up going into a sort of weird pitch mode. We're not pitching it to you. It doesn't exist, and it's going to die as soon as this presentation's over. And we are going to do a very risky live demo, and AI is not great for that, so there may be some things that generate that are a bit odd. And then we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to ask you to use a QR code and just experiment and start messing around with it while we're talking. It's fine, you can ignore us. And yeah, we're going to break down exactly when AI was used and how it was used, and then finally give you some kind of practical tips where you can go home. So a focus in, hopefully you're not going to come across like anything on those screen grabbers we saw all the time, and give you something that you can actually take away. So let's go. Now we're going to introduce you, well, Gus is going to introduce you to our product, but it's not actually a product.
Hi, I'm Gus. Today it is my pleasure to introduce you to a groundbreaking product that embodies the perfect harmony of technology and culinary art. A product we passionately call Gusto Nova. In this age of digitization and artificial intelligence, we believe that technology should empower individuals, enrich their experiences, and create space for creativity. That is the core philosophy behind Gusto Nova. This AI-powered recipe maker and adjuster is not just an assistant, it's your companion in the kitchen, designed to simplify and enhance your cooking experience. With Gusto Nova, we are not just offering a smart recipe tool. We aim to bring creativity, health consciousness, and global exploration to your cooking journey. Gusto Nova promises to make your culinary experiences more enjoyable and personalized. We are thrilled to share Gusto Nova with you and look forward to hearing your feedback. Together, let's transform the way we cook and enjoy food. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Gusto Nova. Inspire, prep, cook.
Gas.
Raise the cocktail stand. Okay, thank you. So that's Gusto Nova, and I'm hoping a lot of you now are going, all right, well, what the fuck was AI there? Like,
Yeah,
was
this
that
is not
all
your
AI?
kind of classic AI demo, first of all, if you can tell straight away.
So, yeah, if you go to the next one, we do the caveats. This is the second part. Now we've introduced the brand to you, Gus has introduced it to you. We're now going to try a live demo to actually show you the product itself. We didn't want to do any smoke and mirrors because it's easy for me to knock something up and pretend that it's a fabrication. It's an actual real working demo, and I need to caveat that things may happen, it might break, some of the images rendered might be actually quite off-putting. We're going to do it live, and we'll go for it now. So,
We're going to do it?
Yeah, let's go. Let's open up the browser.
Cool, right, Chris, come here, because you might need to hold this.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, by the way, someone lost a Monzo card here. Alice? Is anyone Alice? Oh, yeah, there's your Monzo cards here. Oh, yes. I'm gonna, yeah. We need to monetize this because it is expensive.
Why is it called, Chris?
You need to do the thing, didn't you?
No, I didn't. They liked it.
Okay, so already we did say it would be risky. Cancel.
No, stop this.
No, not font book. That's the good. Yep. Here we go. Right, we're in.
All right, then. So,
Okay.
welcome to. Now I need it, don't I? Right, welcome to Gusto Nova. So yeah, we actually built this. It's not obviously definitely not production ready, and there's a lot going on. So, discover the future of cooking. Any food or drink idea, however fanciful, we will create a recipe for you, and you can put in any food, drink, theme, or ingredients. Give you a few. Creative would be one way to kind of put it, especially this little bad boy here. Look at that. That is tantalising, isn't it? A lunch recipe that only includes carrots, potatoes, and an apricot. I mean, if you've got that left in your fridge, then yeah, go to the shops. So let's give it a go. Now, what?
Oh, that's my predicted result. Sorry.
You can see kind of Chris's history here straight away.
Harry Potter.
So something just to kind of say first of all about kind of like how this thing works. So it is not going to search the internet to find a particular recipe. It's not what it does. So the way kind of like ChatGPT and all these kind of like open AI kind of tools work is it knows the kind of concept of like how a recipe is structured and all the different ingredients, and it will basically take all of those things and it's just going to smash them all together. Now, the reason why ChatGPT is so interesting like now and not 5 years ago when it started to kind of be done is that they've actually found a way to just kind of like really confine what that output is, and it's actually now something which looks not necessarily is correct. So let's put something in.
Doesn't have spell check on it.
First of all, pizza, not how you spell it. Right, let's do something a bit. I can't because I'm typing in, but I'm looking over there. Right, let's imagine, not combo, let's do a collab. Because it is collaborate. Is collab 2 L's or 1 L?
Don't look at me.
It's 2, is it? Right then, let's see what happens. Right, so imagine a world when Pizza Hut and KFC got together. Let's see what would happen.
We don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know, honestly.
So, and this is the magic.
It changes every day. Right, and so you do have to kind of like wait a couple of minutes, and so yeah, so you can. So first of all, we got a picture kind of coming in, and now we got a recipe. So this is the Pizza Hut and KFC collab pizza. So it's told us to bring in a pre-made pizza crust and some Pizza Hut and KFC sauce, and of course the classic KFC gravy, obviously. So we haven't told it to do popcorn chicken or even chicken or anything at all. It's kind of grabbed all of those things that it knows, and it's put it together inside a recipe, and it's given us instructions. So we got, so someone could take this home and go make this the delightful kind of treat. And so that's the kind of the first kind of part of this. Now, and so obviously someone can kind of do this and go and create different recipes. Now, this is kind of interesting. It's kind of like stage 1, right? It's kind of that hello world of like ChatGPT of like go and create a thing.
It's out the box basic, really.
Now, instead of being like a chat-based thing, one of the challenges I think at the moment is everyone's just chucking in chatbot in stuff. And so I want to try and think like, what is that kind of like new UI kind of paradigm, and what are those interactions we know, but can be powered by AI. So down here we've got create a variation. We've got a few kind of hints like make it vegetarian and gluten-free, and make a quicker version, a healthy version, or just anything you kind of want. So let's see what happens if we make vegetarian and gluten-free. So now it's make us a new recipe. And let's see what it does. To be honest, I haven't even tried this.
Yeah, I mean, it theoretically doesn't make sense.
Because, I think like one of the really interesting things is like you can just chuck anything at it. We chuck hundreds and hundreds of different things at it. So let's see what it does. It's thinking. Doing that one. But what it thinks, one of the things we'll kind of talk about is like I think recipes in general are quite, there's been some really interesting like research around like how recipes are actually quite hard to kind of like read because they're quite big chunks of kind of content, and actually sometimes they've got multiple steps inside one thing, especially people with kind of like neurodivergent conditions. This is why they find it struggles. And so one of the things we've done, I don't think it's playing ball, mate. Let me have a little look. Oh. There we go. Peek behind the
behind the curtain.
Cloak, is that? Oh, it's up here. It's fine. It's just on this screen. Just keep me going. Oh no, it's still doing it. Yeah,
I think it's because it's a really hard question. How to make KFC pizza
still doing something
and gluten-free.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna. Yeah, it's a good question. How do you make it?
I think it's impossible.
Right, we did say this was going to happen. I mean, it does look like it's doing something, but let's just kind of refresh and we'll come in again because it will basically create it. It's about to do it on it. Yeah, and so we are kind of trying to kind of see how that AI can like restructure content in a particular way. So let's go to, we've lost our tab, haven't we, Chris, of the example? Right, so we all know different recipes. Let's go to BBC Food. Now, let's take this one here. Right, so as we can see, this is kind of like a classic kind of recipe. You've got kind of 8 steps, and you've got some of these steps are kind of combining different things, and it doesn't really help you out. Like one of the bits of research we've kind of been exploring is how that people, if you got a recipe, it's done that one here. There you go. Right, there's the vegetarian and gluten-free version, so it's given us gluten-free. Thank you very much. Well, no, thank you, Gus. So it's given us a gluten-free pizza crust. Yeah, and it's
look, mushrooms,
made it in
black
vegetarian.
olives. Yeah.
So one of the interesting things is like so with AI, what I'm finding really interesting, I don't know about too much at the moment, is how that it makes content into something which is actually now malleable. So normally content like this, we can't change this, right? It's just text on a page. Yes, I could copy and paste this and then edit stuff in it. Or like if I wanted to kind of change particular things, let's say I don't like onions or like I don't like milk, and what's the good alternatives for? I need to go and search Google for kind of those things, and trawl through blogs and 100 different kind of pages to kind of get to that kind of answer. Now, one of the things that it can do is that it actually makes this content something which you can ask kind of a question of, and you can kind of change it, and you can adjust it, and it knows all the different connections to different things. And so like sometimes changing a ingredient out doesn't just mean change it out. It means I've got to have kind of cook it in a certain way, or there's some certain considerations to it. So what this does is it's taken a standard recipe we've kind of found, and it's just going to tidy it up, and so to kind of be the same way we've kind of got here. There we go. And so we've now got sweet potato meatballs. It's got all exactly the same ingredients, but the instructions have now been grouped around sub-goals, and it's been chunked out into really just like small kind of steps. And so this, I think, is the really first kind of interesting thing we found so far, is that and how that people can really just kind of break kind of stuff out in like a much easier to kind of read and kind of follow way. Now, where's the cursor? Oh, there it is. So right, one last thing we're going to show you before we go into like how we kind of did this and some of our insights. So another thing, as we're talking about kind of like combining things and trying to find insights from those things, it's good at kind of like reason stuff. So if we ask it to kind of cook those things to, mate, look at that, beautiful. I think.
There's a prototype.
No, it's fine. Right, let's do. No, it's fine. Right, when this does that one, we're going to combine them all together. So so when we can kind of combine things together, maybe we need to kind of create 3 or 4 things at the same time. We're doing a little kind of party, and actually it's hard to know when to kind of start cooking ones and when to start prepping ones. And so actually this can potentially combine them all into one step of actions to kind of do, and then it will produce you a new recipe. So let's chuck those 2 together. We'll give it one more go when it loads up. And if not, we'll just pass over it. And
Did you
play with it? No, I've got to wait.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
That
So
little
this
one
is
down
an
there.
issue. This is an issue.
Is a launch blocker, do we think?
Before we had it deliberately writing for us, because it gave you that feeling that you were communicating, and then because of Gareth built all this in CSS, when we applied the styling to it, it meant that it wouldn't work. So we're like, we're just going to have it load.
Anyway.
I was meant to design a preloader sprite for it, but we didn't have time. So unfortunately, we just have to awkwardly stand it while it's generating.
Right, anyway, fine. Right, I think we'll pass over for people to go and play with anyway, and then we'll come back to it towards the end. Fine. That's
So
Right.
we had a few other examples as well when we were testing. We asked people around the idea of how could they use it. So for instances, there could be journeys like give me food that's go for it, QR code it, see what happens. There could be instances in which you might say, oh, give me a traditional food from Iceland or Southern Dakota, and it would then kind of generate this stuff, which is amazing. And then we were like, okay, Emily, one of our UX principals, was saying, well, I just want it to be based on what I have in my fridge. So I've got cucumber, I've got sandwich, I've got butter, and what have you. And I mean, that's obvious, you make a cucumber sandwich, but you might have something that's a little bit more interesting and that generates it. So it was really cool to be able to kind of just trust what it was doing and those unmet needs in which you were mentioning before. With how you can kind of get to that extra level of detail in terms of having these very kind of direct commands and then editing it, and you keep editing it and you're keeping it contained in this one environment. So that was quite fun. So while you're having a play and you're creating some Haribo-based pizza or something like that, I'm going to give you a little talk for the designers in the room how we got to this brand. So the first one was chatting to GPT about how can I get a brand name. So I said, can you help me with a name, kind of a cooking assistant? I'd like it to be influenced by kitchen tour, maybe a play on culture. And it was really boilerplate. Like your first, as you're probably all familiar with GPT, the first response is always boilerplate and always rubbish. It's things like, he's gone. Just one. It was like chef says, but rubbish. Next one. So I was like, okay, can you push it a bit more? Maybe you can add in some like Greek or Latin, and you can kind of mix it with this idea of creativity and cooking. And that felt really hard. I couldn't even read out like some of those responses. And I was like, okay, this is getting a bit difficult. Maybe can you do something that's a bit more easier to read? And Korea, this is still a bit, it sounds weird when you say it out loud. So I was like, okay, what if you remove the Latin aspect and then kind of use more in imagination terms? And it came up with this culinary 8, but then my reply to that was, I think it might confuse people into thinking that we're designing recipes that only take 8 minutes, and then it apologized for that. And it said, and then I said, I do like Epicuria, because of Epicureanism, makes sense for food and foodies, etc. But I was a bit worried that people wouldn't know how to spell it. So then I said, is there another word that carries the same context, but it's easier, and it said Gusto Nova, and I was like, oh, that sounds nice there, Gusto Nova. You could say like Gusto or Gusto, and I was like, okay, I feel like there's some kind of like, there was something creative in that, and for more the design side of me, it was thinking like, this has got legs. So I said, in other countries, does that carry the same context? And if you go to the next one, it says that it carries it through. It's like, is it based on Greek or Latin? And it said that it's not kind of specifically based on either or, so other languages and markets will slightly change it. So I asked it to give you a few examples on the next one, which is the last one. Here, so we've got Portuguese, we've got Dutch, we've got Japanese, Spanish, French, so slight variations. And I was like, this is actually really quite interesting because it means that we can kind of create a brand that can work across all these different markets and not have the same name. So if you go to the next slide. I started working up what I refer to these as just like wireframey type posters, and this was like the English one, we've got the Dutch one, the French one, so there's slight variation in that language. And you can see that this is like, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Schmack Nova or Savaya Nova, like cuisine, rather than the idea of cook. So you can still has that same value. And I wouldn't have got to that if I didn't have that conversation. I would have just tried to design something like universal rather than something that could translate, which I thought was quite cool. So that's kind of how we got to name. I did want to really test for you guys other ways of using AI to create branding. I had a go at this brand mark, and I wasn't going to put anything up there because it was a bit rubbish. But this really triggered me. Like as one of the selling points, no more designer anxiety. Get your logo instantly, not in weeks. So I was like, right, with that attitude, you're going up. So yeah, it was like, look at it. Anyway, so I put it up there just because it triggered me. It wasn't very good, and then we started kind of experimenting a little bit more. So we did the whole serif sans serif, looking at how we took a phone device and a bowl. And then I noticed that, again, this is kind of classic exploration. I noticed that when I put a bowl under it looked like a face. And then I started experimenting with the icons, and then we eventually built Gus out of that. He's kind of our little phone/bowl icon, and we went for a much more of a sort of South American style brand. The other sort of was a bit pedestrian. It felt like a well-being brand. So this felt like it was punchy enough. So kind of comparing those. This one you may have seen, people talk about it, it's not very good. The reason it's not very good is because it asks you to select 50 colours. The point of it is to give you inspiration so that you can find a new, what's happened? Yeah. The point of it is you use it to kind of generate some colour inspiration. But the issue is you have to select over 50 before it will generate the seeds, which I'm pretty sure is beyond the amount of colours that you would require. So you may as well just said select all or just generate, just randomly generate. There are ones out there that randomly generate, that are perfect, and I would say that's much better than using this. So sometimes people use the term AI to try and suggest something because it's really popular right now. Images, we used Adobe Firefly in beta and DALL-E 2 for the illustrations, So some of them were great. As a partial illustrator myself, there are serious issues with this if you scratch the surface. But Adobe Firefly is an interesting one because the way they're dealing with, as I said, we're not going to go into ethics or politics, but the way they're dealing with the fair use and transformation is at the moment in beta, anyone that uses it, you'll get a little watermark on it. So the idea being that that's going to then generate a larger pool, in which when it goes to alpha, it will be transformative enough for it to be classed as a copyright safe. So it's kind of an interesting middleman that they've built from there. But the illustrations themselves were quite nice. I went for this sort of middle one in the end. If you go next, it will go to, once we started to apply the branding to it, you could see there was some kind of fun in there. And same with images. So as you may notice, I don't know if anyone's successfully built some fun recipes while you're out there, but DALL-E 2 is actually awful at generating images. And in context of recipes, sometimes you may see something that looks like, for want of a better word, an anus. So it's not great. And it will do things like randomly try and add text on it. And we've all seen the stuff with hands. It can't do hands. It's not, you know that. But Firefly was great. These are all AI. This is all generated. These were the prompts. Next one, Gareth, because of time. This one was using generative fill in Photoshop, which I'm sure you've all seen. People are using that at the moment for film posters to make them bigger. But this was the original that I got from Unsplash, and then I asked it to add in a phone. So it's pretty convincing, right? That was very quick. That was very easy for me to do as a designer. And it's actually really good at doing food, just not DALL-E 2. So Firefly, Midjourney is probably the best, but we couldn't get Midjourney API to work.
Well, Midjourney doesn't have an API yet. DALL-E 2 does, and it's part of the whole open AI kind of package. It's really easy to kind of call to, but it's just a shame that images aren't great, and Firefly doesn't have one at all. So yeah, so hopefully soon. That's a bit of a preview of it's not ready yet.
Yes. And then here was just applying it to the brand as well. So we got some like lifestyle images. This guy's completely made up. This bowl is completely made up. When I say made up, it's generative. If you get to the next one, you saw that earlier. We were trying to find like a way of adding that tone of voice around. I got a potato boiling for dinner. What about Lord of the Rings theme one? So it was an interesting brand to kind of like, we lent into that craziness and that creativity of it and made that a part of the brand experience. And I want to, feed my burger on Tim Burton and D&D, Dungeons & Dragons night, wanted to kind of create this theme stuff. So within that branding material with Gus, we really wanted to lean into the craziness of what that generation might be. Again, these they're not real. No one took a photo here. It's mad.
Yeah, which is a kind of pretty crazy thing.
That burger's
do look
good.
Really nice. Right, let's talk a bit about how we built this and a bit of the kind of the discovery kind of process. Hopefully, this is where we kind of start. We want to do some research. We want to understand what those kind of challenges are. And so we talked a bit about this earlier on. There's definitely a lot of kind of issues with like current recipes. And so one of our first ones, we can like talk to actually ChatGPT to kind of understand like how could we restructure a recipe. And we did some just kind of like research around family and friends to understand how they kind of read recipes. Reading a PhD research thing as well, which is probably overkill, but it was really interesting. And so we kind of came to kind of this idea and chatted about to kind of get a bit of a structure down. And then we also kind of talked to it and we said, look, what are those kind of like access and ability needs which people reading a recipe might have? And like we'd thought of some of these, but there was some in here we kind of hadn't really thought about yet. And actually we kind of, that's kind of quite interesting, and that step-by-step instructions, and each step is kind of broken down, is definitely a big kind of part of this. Yeah, and there's a lot of really kind of interesting ideas where that it actually needs some form of AI to kind of like manipulate that content for kind of people. So let's talk about code just for a bit. So if there's any kind of developers here or anyone who's just kind of interested in kind of playing, this is a lot more accessible, I think, than some may think. So one of the ways we kind of used ChatGPT to kind of help develop this is by just asking it things. Now, I'm going to say something up front is like that app, we did not type in, make me a recipe, build an app, and it just spat it out. It's not possible to kind of do that. You can try that, and it will try and convince you that this code will kind of do this and this, but you build it, and it will all quickly fall apart. What it is really, really impressive at, especially in GPT-4, is really condensed, kind of like confined things. And so I had one where I said, right, I wanted to write some Python code that converts a markdown recipe using the one we created, which was on an earlier chat, as an example, and turn it into JSON. Now, we could probably do this if we did it step by step, but as you can see here, this is a bit heavy, right? This is a bit, a bit kind of heavy and a bit kind of specific, and so I was like, okay, let's get it to kind of sort it out. Those kind of drudge tasks were like, there's not much creativity in this bit, it's not really much unique to us, I just need to convert from A to B. And it will create this thing. Now, this thing it's not crazy small, but it's not too big. It's kind of in between. So it will get it wrong. But I can then ask it to like adjust things, and so now I'm getting more specific, and so I'm kind of saying like, right, adjust the kind of code for instances where the recipe isn't going to be structured in the same way every time, and it will kind of update it. Then I start getting errors, and I kind of told it about it, and it said, oh, this is how to kind of fix it. Here you go again, and it comes out again. And so it's quite a powerful way to kind of do this kind of type of work actually pretty kind of quickly. The other example is when we get even kind of more smaller. And so this kind of task, and so I'm saying how to add a new key value pair to a JSON object that already has 3 key and value pairs. Really simple. I should probably know this off the kind of top of my head, but it's those kind of syntax things where we all go to like Stack Overflow, and we go, right, what is this thing? But I've got Google and text links, I've got chat, I've got something, which one's right or wrong? I ask it, and in 2 seconds it's gone, yeah, cool, it's that. And I'm like, oh, sweet, crack on. So I've saved probably about 5 minutes, but I'm doing that 100 times a day, which means I'm saving so much time, and it's actually made encoding so much more enjoyable because I'm getting stuff back a lot kind of quicker. So that kind of side of things, it's cool, but you have to know how to code first of all. It's not going to suddenly make someone a Class A coder. It's going to level people up. And so people who don't know how to, it's definitely a way to start to kind of learn stuff. And for people who can do it, they can do it quicker. So let's talk a bit about the AI black box. Now, there's an actual terminology of a black box, but we're not going to get into, as we said, into any specifics or like that. So prompts. This is crazy small, but so this is a piece of code in Python. Now, what this does, this is a prompt. Now, prompts are basically kind of text, which is explaining to ChatGPT or the API and what I went back. Now, a prompt inside here, I'm just going to kind of like break down the way I've kind of found prompts can be quite impactful and kind of get out things which you kind of want. And so again, when I talked again about how that if I ask it to kind of build something big, it's not going to give me the kind of like correct thing. Again, if I ask something incredibly broad, it's going to give me a very generic kind of answer. So first of all, we start off with give it a bit of a persona, which kind of just like focuses things down. So you are a helpful and recipe making assistant, and so now it kind of knows I'm going to stay in this kind of world. Then we can give it some steps to kind of think through. And so because if you just ask it again something very generic, it's going to go everywhere. And so I'm saying, right, so those 3 words, super powerful. Go and try them out, like think in steps, because it just slows it down and it will process stuff easier. So you basically say, think in steps, how much I'll need of each ingredient, then provide a list of required ingredients and the quantity I'll need of each, provide clear step-by-step instructions, and then group the instructions into milestones. Then you're going to give it a task. Now, this is where we're saying, I want you to write a recipe for X, and I want you to make sure that it can feed X amount of kind of people. Now, those 2 things are coming from the interface we all saw, they're being passed through and it's being wrapped up here. Now, there's a really good point here, which was also in Matt's talk about VR, show, don't tell. Incredibly true here too. Now, this is something you don't see talked about too much, and so like I kind of hear constantly around different offices, people saying, oh, I've tried it, but it's not really come out with something I kind of want, or like I've asked it to kind of be formal, but it's like really old English. I'm like, yes, because it's really hard to tell it to do something, to try and explain it. It doesn't understand. But if you show it, and so here I'm basically saying respond in Markdown and structure it in this way, and here is an example of how I'd like it back. 95% of the time, it will follow that, and it will do it in that precise way every single time. And so try that when you go home. It's quite a powerful way of kind of doing prompt stuff.
Cool. So insights then, wrap up. So one thing that was quite interesting that came out of it was our understanding of its capabilities are kind of beyond our expectations. So I'll just give you an example. Cazoo is a chef, and we sent him the app, and we were like, have a play with this. And he said, I wouldn't cook any of this, but I would probably spend an afternoon just playing with stuff. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And he said, for example, I'd like to do a cherry cola homemade slushy, which sounds cool. I could do one of those now. And he was like, it gave a result, and it said cola in there. It didn't brand it. It just said cola. And he was like, yeah, but this is too basic for me. Like, I want to know, like, what about the cola? How do I make the homemade cola? And I was like, just ask it. And he was like, what? Because he was so used to kind of searching and browsing at that top level that he wasn't able to think about the deeper bit. And then when he asked it got all the ingredients for the homemade cola. He was like, right, actually, this is good. So it's up to us as UX practitioners and consultants to be able to ensure that we do have those traditional processes of being able to make sure that we have the signposting and the suggestions and support them in that until they get used to that process. This one is really big. Once you start experimenting with this, and I'm sure obviously all of you raised your hand up when you started using GPT, you get used real quick to like asking very contextual commands and getting a very personalized response. And once this does, and we'll get to cost in a minute, but once this does go out into the real world and it becomes a standard, users are going to expect this as the way things are. So it's going to force us to kind of adapt it a lot quicker, I believe, than we might be ready for. But there's some excitement for that, because I think we found that we were challenging these standard journeys. You know, there's so many journeys of like onboarding processes, form fields. When we looked at, just a side note, I designed those layouts in Figma first, and I'm actually looking to hate them now, but that's a designer insecurity in me. But we were thinking, okay, so we've got all our recipes. We wanted like a slider, you know, the old Tinder thing, whatever. We wanted like a slider, and then we're like, got to do a sort by, you know, if you've got like 100 recipes, we want to sort by, filter by. And we're like, actually, do we need to sort by, filter by? Can we just say, show me all the recipes I've done the last time, get all the chicken ones? We can, and then suddenly, although that might not be the right way of doing it, but it just made us challenge all these standard expectations of what we've done before. And we suddenly felt like students again. We've been knocking about for a while, and we're like, oh, this is actually cool. I don't no longer have to look at that classic page and go, ugh. And there's obviously all testing and validation that's going to come with this. It's going to be concepts, and it's like a whole new bag of tools to play with.
And so I think on the kind of point of this no tools, chat. So
right,
what we're seeing, so what we are kind of seeing currently is like a lot of kind of people are trying to say, oh, I've got AI on my app. I'm not going to name any names today, but they are often just dropping a chatbot in, or they're dropping a big empty field in, going like, tell me what you kind of want. Now, as far as the kind of using ability people here, that is really bad. There is no affordances inside a chat bot. It doesn't guide you through anything. You don't really know what your kind of purpose is. And sometimes if you've got just like an empty kind of like text filled box, you don't really know what to kind of put inside of it. It's just not the most optimum way, even though it is in ChatGPT a really cool way to kind of like play with it and kind of explore. I don't believe so far it is how people should integrate it within their apps. And so we've got a job to kind of do to kind of work this kind of stuff out. And the final point is finding the right ways is really hard. As we all know, trying to name things, it's so hard to do. And even coming back to that like prompt, like you can't expect people to know how to craft the perfect prompts to find the perfect things, and like everyone will kind of ask things in like a certain different way. And so there's definitely work here to be done, but don't be lazy and chuck a chatbot in would be my first kind of point. So ways to reframe AI. So we've got three ways. We're trying to think about it, and if it's not just a chatbot, conversational, kind of thing. One is think about it as like a reasoning engine. So by this, it's not good at storing and retrieving information. It will make stuff up. Like there's that famous story recently about a court case where a lawyer was doing some research on ChatGPT, and he got 3 cases, and he took those into court and basically tried to say these 3 things happened, but they didn't happen. Like, it's not a good thing to kind of store stuff in. That's not what it's being built for. It's not trying to replace Google as like a store and retrieval things. Now, kind of reasoning, it's really good at kind of working things out, understanding kind of context. And so if you could give it a page of content and you tell it to give it a semantic analysis of that page, and then do it again, and then kind of compare them all, that stuff is really kind of interesting stuff, and it really gets down into what things mean and how you kind of compare them. Translator. So what we kind of saw before, how then we can kind of translate pieces of content into how people need them. Now, one thing at the moment, the digital design by its kind of like nature is quite stuck in place. We can't change it, and people have to kind of bend to it. What I think is really kind of a big opportunity. Now, there's a ton of work to do here, but like, how can AI help tech to bend to us instead? That could be a really interesting kind of shift, where that I've seen, we've all seen countless times going up to like a parking screen and going like, what do I do? There's like a button there. Press the yellow button if you've got a card, but where is it? Got all these different things. Like, how can that change? Like, how can that adapt to us? Especially people who've got an ever-growing range of like needs, and like, because like we all try and kind of create things which can work for everyone, but it's really hard to kind of get things right for every single person. So how can AI help there? It's a really interesting area to go and explore, and then just kind of collaboration, just kind of cheesy perspective in your pocket. Where did that come from? I don't know. But it was me, wasn't it? Okay. So just this idea, like, as you're creating things, just chuck ideas at it and seeing what it comes and back with. You'll be really surprised, like, oh, actually, I hadn't thought about that, or I hadn't thought about that. And we're doing stuff currently around like trying to group things for like a new information architecture kind of project. And we're chucking questions at it, going like, if you got these 5 groups and this thing, where would you expect it to kind of be, and why, and which things are actually competing for your attention? And it gives you some really interesting things to kind of like take away and go, oh, I hadn't thought about that actually. Those 2 things do sound kind of similar, or actually it could be this and that. And so it's just those things. It's not going to do it for you, but it gives you that partner to kind of like just kind of try stuff out with. It's cool.
Cool. So thinking of tips then, like, it's important to keep up the hard skills. Like, don't rely on AI to like help you design better, and certainly don't kind of rely on it to design for you. Like, as the creative director, I kind of wouldn't employ somebody that only uses prompts. I'd expect them to have hard skills and to be learning these hard skills, and then they deserve the right to fast track it through a prompt. That's my opinion. Gatekeeping, gaslighting, whatever, probably, but that's my opinion on it. So the next one then, creativity. And this is really important because it came out somewhat in the kind of branding examples that we looked at earlier, where the O became the smile with the face. Design, it's not about averages, it's not about crunchy numbers, it's about these kind of happy mistakes, these kind of outliners. That's normally what makes something really cool, and it's the magic of creativity. And that could be in a research context as well. You could have an interview with someone and you'll find this edge case, and suddenly you'll then develop more on this edge case, and you open up this whole can of worms, and you'll discover all these unmet needs. And AI is never going to be able to replace that experience. And you can design more faster, but to quote Gareth's best quote, I asked if I could quote it for him, but it's to outsource AI to the bits that do not require your humanity. So if you want to put that as a hashtag, that's the one for today.
Cool. Cheers, Chris. So cost. Now, just as we kind of talked about earlier, it's not being ready, we kind of saw it's got issues with it. But one thing is cost. It's really interesting just kind of delve into this. Now, so this is all just some kind of rough calculations, and we'll talk a bit about why this number is so big. And so on GPT 3.5, which is the kind of cheapest GPT, and kind of open AI model currently, to do 100 recipes is about 20 cents, which feels kind of cheap. But when you scale that up, now BBC Good Food gets 38 million visits every single month. Now, if they suddenly turned on a functionality to make all their recipes where you could kind of ask questions to it and you can challenge them and kind of convert them and change them to you and kind of personalize them, they'll be spending 76 grand every month just on that text generation. And if they were to include images, it kind of 10 times that rate. It's 760 grand. And so this stuff starts to become quite expensive and when it's on scale. But this is all changing. Even this week, it became 25% cheaper. But it's just kind of quite interesting to kind of think about it on a
just a little footnote
scale.
on the app. The app that you guys are experimenting with today is linked to Gareth's account. So every time you do something,
every time that you create something, I get charged.
So we're gonna close it off.
It is pretty cheap for everyone here, hopefully. There is a threshold to it, so it's fine. And so I think this all kind of comes down to every new tech innovation generally comes from the geeks and the kind of nerds and that kind of technology. That's where the general innovations come from. But actually, it's if we go back in kind of history, it's the designers, especially kind of the experienced kind of designers who work out how that technology can be used, where it's the most impactful, and actually how to kind of solve those kind of problems and challenges, and touching on some of those things I kind of pointed out are kind of interesting areas. So we need to think in a different way as this stuff is kind of coming in, and so I think it's more of a call to arms, and it's not up to I appreciate that it can be scary, and some people are on that I don't want to know scale. Some people are on that kind of trying to praise that AI God, which is definitely weird and far too far. But it is down to us to try and work out what are those new AI paradigms? How can AI kind of come in and to think about it in a different way?
Cool. So what can we do to get ready now? So this GIF cat is out the bag. But it is, and as you can tell, I don't know if anyone found anything cool with their experiments, but it doesn't work and breaks often. And it's kind of for us, I think the exciting thing is kind of for us to start to think about setting those standards and those regulations and that safety, because we don't want to hand it fully over to the tech bros, because the tech bros at the moment are looking at services in which that they could help big organizations integrate their product. So it's for us to really be able to govern that. And there's a really good article from the Norton Group that came out around that recently. But what can you do? So we at Nomensa, we have a working group. So there's probably a few of you here that have a working group as well. It's a tri-nation, and basically we have a member from each team that has their own specialist field. We get together and we discuss how AI could positively or negatively affect that particular team and discipline. And we're starting to work around the idea. It's slow, but we're working around the idea of how we can safeguard and use kind of strategies and stuff like that. So the other one that's really interesting that comes back to a bit of a service as consultants, it's not all consultants here, but there is going to be a space soon in which the more we kind of understand, there will be products that will have certain legacy restrictions that AI may now be able to resolve. So there could be a kind of boom of industry, so to speak, from this for companies wanting to need support to integrate this into their systems. So the more we know, the more we understand, the more we can kind of turn that into a commercial service. If I was to put my lizard head on, there is that as an opportunity. And yeah, this guy. So this is like probably, hopefully, the safest slide for everyone here is you can do absolutely nothing. Like you could just leave this and do nothing, because eventually all the stuff that we were testing today, if it's good, it will be integrated into our software. And it's very similar to those who have been around long enough to experience the smartphone revolution, when we went from like 960 max width all the way to responsive design. It was a big kind of change, not as big as this, but it was a big change, and eventually we kind of got used to it, and it improved the way that we worked. And if we go back even further, this is why I've got Alan Sugar up here, who apparently is, guess how old he's in his 20s in this picture. That's mental. Yeah. So he's in his 20s here, like going from the typewriter to the personal computer. So that was a big change, and it was for the better. Well, yeah. I mean, it is for the better.
Yeah, that is questionable across everything, but yeah, here we are. So I think, yeah, kind of one of our kind of final points is like, I don't believe, and I don't think Chris believes either, that like AI is going to suddenly be like everywhere and going to be everything, and everything's going to be driven by it. Because we as people, we enjoy drama and the like the flaws and the kind of history, and what we kind of sum up as like kind of lived experiences. That's something AI doesn't have, computers don't have. Like that's what comes from people and being a human in this world. And so there's a story about chess where like when AI first beat, there you go, cheers, Chris. So when AI first beat a grandmaster chess, that grandmaster claimed that chess was over. It was dead, it was never coming back, no one's interested at all. But chess is more popular now than it ever kind of has been. And that's because no one's interested in just like watching a AI play a AI. It's boring. There's no kind of history to it. People want this. You know, I want to see this person here, this like mum who's a chess grandmaster play this kind of street hustler, because those two have got stories behind them. I don't know their stories completely, but you can kind of determine that there's something there. There's going to be characters to it. There's going to be flaws. People are going to make mistakes. And actually, we were chatting to like a friend a couple of evenings ago who actually said that in the kind of like chess world championships a couple of years ago, they even had, if you were to watch it live, after every single move, a computer screen came up and basically like, this move is the best move to kind of take now. But people just kind of found it, took that spark away, took that intrigue away, because it was just constantly going like, well, yeah, go here. And then obviously people didn't every time go there. Like people weren't interested in it. And so now it's actually got people on there doing commentary and kind of talking about it and kind of saying, well, I do this if this and this if that, because we don't want things to be like perfect, because there's no drama to it, there's no flaws. And so that's something I don't personally think AI is going to come over and kind of like steal everything. You can just go and read those BuzzFeed travel articles that they've been created 100% by AI, and they are bland as fuck. Like.
Cool, and then finally, just a little thank you. So we did some user testing. Obviously, this was a cocktail that my wife created. It was Jurassic Park. She loves Jurassic Park. So yeah, this would be trying it, and it was actually nice. So that was quite cool.
Gastonova, it's the fun app that helps you become a culinary supernova.
I did forget that was in there.
So I'm going to tell them all now. That is not AI. That's
AI.
Chris.
That's
that is. But this is AI.
Oh, 2 secs.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, reflecting on our journey, I'm struck by the remarkable interplay of creativity, technology, and culinary artistry we experienced while creating Gastonova. Working with Gareth and Chris has been an enlightening adventure. Our varying perspectives, combined with the immense power of AI, sparked a cascade of innovations that kept us on our toes. Our work with AI has taught us that its true power lies in its ability to empower individuals, to streamline complex tasks, and to enrich lives. It's not just about faster processing or immense storage. It's about its capacity to reflect, learn, and adapt to our human intricacies. Thank you, from the core of our AI hearts, to everyone here at Collaborate, and to Nomensa for inspiring us and making this journey possible. Here's to many more innovations, collaborations, and hopefully, Delicious meals prepared with Gusto Nova. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.